Hi, welcome to Slow Podcast, focusing on that which takes time to grow. And I'm Kevin, and this is my wife Esther. We're back for yet
Welcome back.
another episode, right?
Yep.
And before we go, new setup.
Yeah.
All right, improvement. We got new
if
microphone.
you're watching this podcast, we have proper mics.
Yep.
Right
we
now.
used to be holding it on our own.
Our TikTok mics.
Yeah, and we thought that was not cool. Had up our game a bit. So
So you
we're
know
back.
this is a serious game we're playing.
Yeah, getting there.
We'll try to be more consistent in our recording.
Oh yes, we have been.
Yeah.
We've improved quite a lot,
Yeah.
I think. So it's good that we're keeping
Small
it up.
milestones.
Small milestones. Just let's celebrate.
Yeah.
Don't break my mug. So, I think a lot of people been giving us feedback about our podcast. They do enjoy two of us talking. I'm really happy to hear that, because when we started doing this, we were thinking like, who would want to listen to us? And
And recently I've been to a few other podcasts that I got
wow,
invited
someone's
on.
famous now.
And to my shock and horror, I was so shocked by people's professionalism.
Oh well,
When they're
is that the
shooting a
reason why we
podcast.
up our game?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Right. But it's been fun seeing how other people do their podcasts. And what's unique about this podcast is the conversations that we have with each other. Most of the time, like the podcast I've been to, they will give me a list of questions that
Yeah.
they want to talk to me about and ask me about. And I think we've talked about this before in one of our previous podcasts.
Yeah.
That I have a husband that can't be prepped too early. So a lot of times we come into a podcast not knowing exactly all the questions
Look
that
at my face.
we're going to answer. Like, what's the structure of this content?
But we do have a plan. It's just not so elaborate.
The plan is to go with the flow. That is your plan.
We have a topic.
Yeah, we have, at least now we have a topic. There was one podcast recording. I didn't even know what we were going to talk about. You said, just relax.
Yeah, I think so too. It's a healthy foundation of a happy marriage, guys, that my wife and I, we can just talk to each other.
And it took us...
Maybe that's an angle too, you know.
Yeah. And this is something that took us maybe 19 years to build.
Oh, I'm glad you remember.
Yeah, it's 19 years.
Yep.
Slow process. 19
Slow
years
process.
is a long time. And talking about 19 years, you were away last weekend. And I had an interesting conversation with you that
Oh, yeah.
that involves our past. So I'll leave all the juicy details out of this, but just a background story. So something happened. There was a major conversation that happened between my parents and I 19 years ago. And since then, that has become like a life lesson for me that I use in my talks sometimes.
Yeah.
So recently I did a talk on marriage and divorce.
Yeah.
So I used that as an illustration. I shared that story that happened 19 years ago, and what I learned from it, how I overcame it, and the lessons that I got out of it. So then, this is now 2 months later after that talk.
Yep.
So one day, my dad came to me, and he said, "I need to discuss something with you." And I was wondering, what, what's so serious that?
Yeah.
Because it was a really serious tone. So I sat down.
I was not around.
Yeah, you were not around. So they felt it was the perfect time because you were not around. So my mom and dad came over and they sat me down and they said, "We heard your talk." And I was wondering, what talk? The latest talk on YouTube. And I said, "Okay, I've done that many times." And they said, "That incident that you shared 19 years ago, did it really happen? I don't remember that it happened." And I was like, "Yeah, I did. I remember this about that incident." And my parents said, "But we don't remember it at all. And I didn't know it affected you that much." And in my heart, I'm trying to now think back, what did I say during the talk that would have hurt them. So I had to gather my thoughts and I said, actually, the fact that I could talk about it in talks or in public stages is that it's not a big deal for me because it's something that I learned and something that I value the both of them for doing that for me. And now I think a lot of you would want to know, what is that talk?
Listen to the talk.
Yeah.
Not here.
So then my dad said, so there was, you could see in their face that they really don't remember that incident. And there I was 19 years later sitting there in front of them. I had to convince them that I have no resentment. I was telling them, I'm not resentful. And they didn't believe me. They said, we love you and we're here for you. I said, no doubt about it. And I really do feel whatever happened 19 years ago, you did it the right way. And that really shaped my marriage and shaped my life and my thinking. And I really appreciate you for that.
Shape your husband too.
Yeah, it shaped you too. Right. So the conversation went on for 30 minutes because, they felt really bad that it probably was a traumatic experience for me. And they were worried that I became hateful towards them or resentful or felt that they didn't love me more than my siblings. They had to remind me that, we love you as much as your brother and sisters. And I said, I know, I have no issue about it. So it was my talk. At the end of it, I had to now be their counselor to counsel them that, hey, it's okay, right? It's for the good of everybody, and see how my marriage has turned out. So then I talked to you about it, right? So you called and I said, guess what? Mom and Dad came and asked me about that story. And there began our conversation about holding grudges.
That's a long introduction.
Yeah, but I need to explain how we came to this conversation. And I thought it was a really meaningful conversation. And right there and then I said, we got to put this on the podcast.
Okay.
We got to talk about this, right? So then I said, hey, my parents talked to me, and you know what? They were so worried, they were so concerned, and they were really affected because they remembered nothing about that incident 19 years ago. And then you said something to me. All right, you remember what you said?
Yep. I said, sometimes had we hold grudges, it would have been terrible to be bound by that when the person who seemingly thought that the person have said it and in such a way that it can create such impact on us. Actually, don't even remember saying it.
Yeah.
Right? It was like a passing statement or non-issue. So I think sometimes we hold grudges towards people that we think that they say something that might cage us, but they don't even remember. So it would be very sad if we are held captive by what we think someone has said to us and let that affect us for 90 years. Had it affected us for 90 years, I think that would be terrible.
Can you imagine?
Was it what
it was the other way around?
Yeah.
Imagine it was the other way around, and I was really hurt by it, and I held grudges, and I was resentful. 19 years later, and I put it on a talk, and then my parents come to me, and we had that same conversation that night. And for me to realize they don't even remember that incident.
Yeah, exactly right.
How much time would I have wasted 19 years of my life being a lesser me because I'm so affected by it. I couldn't get out of it. And that's what happens to many people, right? Maybe you're listening and you really can identify with this because something happened maybe in your childhood, in the past, with your friends, family members, and till today you still find it hard to hold grudges. And we wanted to talk about this because it really does affect slow living. Right? When you hold grudges, you can't truly live, you can't truly be yourself because you are using a lens of hurt to see the world, everything, the relationships, and everything else. Yeah,
because when we talk about slow living, we're actually talking about a quality life. And not just on the external of what we own or we possess, but also who we are on the inside. And yeah, I mean, had it affected us 19 years ago, and we are still like hurt by it, then it would be sad, because to them, firstly, it wasn't an issue. I think few things. Firstly, to them it was important to tell us, but secondly, sometimes something important that they need to tell us, or we need to tell somebody, we also have to make sure the person hearing it or receiving it, you know, we got to be just a bit more sensitive to know how does it translate. Maybe to them it was out of concern, but you know, what if we hear it as a way of condemnation, and it would be terrible. Maybe it was a test to see how resolute you are towards the marriage and the wedding, but end up you are being defeated and the relationship is broken. So, well, I think if you do have some issues like that in your life, it is not easy to talk about, but do not wait till 19 years later before you actually do something about it, right? If it really affected you so much, go and talk about it, you know. And I personally feel going to talk about it is the best way, but if you don't have the courage to talk about it, then you got to really learn to let go and move on, because it's going to be hard.
And to the art of letting go, firstly, a person probably need to realize how they fall into that automatic thought process where they are the victim, right? Like, hey, I was wrong. You did that to me. You said that to me. And why do people hold grudges? Because you did wrong, and you are supposed to apologize or make amends, say sorry. But what if people don't? And people like my parents don't even know, forgotten about it, right? Or they didn't think it was such a big deal. They thought it was something important to tell me. So in order to not hold grudges, notice how you are behaving now. If you tend to, you know, think that, you know, you are the victim here, you know, you're the one who's losing out. You know, how come other people can treat you that way? And it's time to stop that thought pattern and to take back power and to actually take the responsibility to acknowledge, hey, I think that was hurtful. That was a tough moment. Do I want to let it affect me? Right? And learning to see from the other person's perspective is probably important too. Because maybe they see things differently. So when you can start taking off that lens that you're so used to wearing, right, and begin to put on this new lens of, hey, you know what? I will not let that affect me, and I'm just going to move on. And it could be really hard for some people because the hurt is really deep and it's piled up with all other types of resentment over the years. Because after that, imagine if I was resentful towards my parents for the last 19 years, everything else that they did, I would have a wrong perspective towards it, because I would feel like, oh, they didn't think about me, they are not fair, you know, they don't really love me, and once it piles up for 19 years of grudges, it's gonna be hard for someone to deal with it. But it's never too late. The first step is to,
I think okay, I want to say this, right? Nobody likes to hold grudges. Nobody. The problem is grudges being held. It's because we do not know how to move on. All right? Like, I don't want to hold grudges, but I just don't have a way to move on. So the point in this case is very interesting. I used to find it really hard that I cannot move on if the other person who was wrong never apologized first. Okay? So that's me. That's my biggest problem in life. Like, because I would think if I do wrong, I must quickly say sorry, right? I was raised that way, by my family, by my upbringing, so you have to apologize. So there was this happened before the story that happened, right? So someone like did me wrong, did me bad. I was so mad. Wow, it even rhymed. Did me bad, and I was mad. Maybe I should do a rap. So, and the person like, nothing happened. It's not my fault. It's circumstance. Basically, it has to do with my car, right? The guy that was supposed to repair my car didn't do anything and lost a lot of my stuff. And he was like, "It's nobody wants it," he said. "It's just circumstance." I am like, can you just be a bit more human and just say, "Hey, bro, sorry. We were friends." Wow, did I use past tense? We were friends. And he did not even have the courtesy to say, "Hey, I'm so sorry. It's been so long. I don't know where is it." He was like, unfortunately. I was mad and I couldn't move on until I have to do something about it. But then the next day, somebody out of nowhere, because of the same car post that I posted, actually apologized to me over something that he did, but never got around to tell me about it. That was an awakening. It was like orchestrated divinely for me to deal with this grudges issue. Like one day, someone just say, ignore it, right? But the next day, someone apologized. So I want to say, if you do not want grudges to hold you captive, the most powerful thing that you will hear from this podcast is you don't need the other person to apologize before you can move on. Why? Because you and I can only take ownership of our own action, our own response, and we cannot make other people do the value that we subscribe to. And I think in the world that we're in, that's like the biggest issue again and again. Like we fight, we are stressed out because the other person is not doing what we're expecting them to do, because they may not just subscribe to our values. Like we think that in a code of friendship you should behave like this, but in his code of friendship or in her code of friendship, nope, that's not how I view it. So yeah, if we just keep expecting everyone to think like us, behave like us, the stress will have no end.
I think the struggle with, sometimes we want that apology, because if we don't make them apologize and say sorry or feel sorry for it, it feels like we're letting them go. It feels like, then we're allowing that person to think that, hey, all these are okay. Or we are, letting that person to step over us and we are a doormat. Or that we're condoning their behavior. But being able to move on without an apology has nothing to do with all that. It is basically giving yourself closure. Yeah. Isn't it?
I like it.
It doesn't mean you agree with whatever the actions. When people don't give you apology or whatever it is, you don't choose to stay stuck, because you can then, hey, I'll give myself the closure. It's okay. Yeah. I'm going to move on. But if it requires me to move away from this friendship, or I'm going to do that. Yeah. Right? But if you're tied to a family relationship, is to be able to maybe move on from dwelling in that situation and conversation, and build on other areas of your family relationship.
I would say if you already decided that the closure is on you, then the next thing that's very important is still choose to be kind. And I think that is the real human strength. Revenge is not strength.
How do you still be kind when firstly you got to give yourself the closure?
I don't think just saying that means everyone can do it. But we have to say it so that we know that ought to be what we aspire to do. And,
so, are you kind?
I'm trying to be kind.
Okay. Is it hard?
Hard, because my kindness, I think it should be reciprocated, but it's not. That's why it's hard.
So
but
in this circumstance,
I should not let their response determine my value.
Okay.
So
but you wouldn't go all out of the way to try and rebuild something with him or show kindness, but it's... So...
Yeah, I think...
What would your kindness look like?
My kindness will look like. My kindness will look like.
It's hard, isn't it?
No, it's hard. It's definitely hard, but my kindness will look like. I will not shut the door on the friendship.
Okay.
I will not say no if you ask for help. But people have to realize that it's not the same anymore. I don't know whether it's kind or not, but yeah, I'm absolutely thinking.
You won't treat them badly, basically.
Yep. Yep.
Right.
I won't. Yeah.
And I think it's an important topic to have to talk about grudges, because it does affect a lot of people.
A lot. All kinds of levels.
Yeah.
At work, at home.
Whether it's grudges
Social.
towards your parents while you're growing up or at work, it is learning to move past it and give yourself that closure.
Yeah. Cool. All right, guys.
This is a personal and deep topic.
Yeah, not easy. Not easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I hope it helps. Let us know what you think. DM us if you have other things, other questions, or maybe how do you want us to respond to this. This is just the two of us trying to work out this issue, you know. So it's our personal take and opinion. But if you do enjoy the subject that we bring up, do like, share, subscribe, talk to us, communicate with us. Otherwise, this podcast is not going to be more inclusive. It will just be husband and wife talking to each other. Thanks, guys. See you the next episode.